All right,
Okay.
welcome to this video, this interview with Mark Kelly. Now, I've asked Mark Kelly to come on because, as I said before, people, when they go through cancer, they're not quite sure how they're going to be left with the treatment, how they're going to be living, the conditions, etc. Now, Mark is today cancer-free, I believe. And he's going to tell us what the treatment did to him, how he's living today, and where he's going from now. Hi, Mark.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me on.
Thank you.
Great,
Thank you
great,
for
great.
being with us. Okay, I know that
Yeah,
your father recently passed away. So
yeah.
all my condolences for that, for you and your family. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing okay. It's been a rough couple of weeks since we found out, and yeah, I got some decisions I got to make. As far as where I'm going to live, I still don't know. About that yet. But yeah, it's been a trying time to say the least. Yeah.
Yeah, it cannot be easy. That's for sure. It can't be easy. And if I've understood, you mentioned that also you're going to be homeless in a couple of days.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's not a very very fun thing to say. I've been since I've been divorced. I've been staying with my mom. Yeah, it's embarrassing. It's a little embarrassing when you're in your 40s. But my mom needed me here. She's been suffering from Parkinson's disease, so I've been able to help out and and be a support for her. Now she really needs to go into a home that's a little more advanced, that could help her a little better. And so for me, because when you do have when you suffer from the side effects of treatment and you can't work full time, and that's what I stopped working full time back in 2008. I was in sports TV, and I worked for ESPN. And I was a researcher, and I was really good at my job. I really loved my job. But the side effects of the chemo and radiation caught up to me after about 15 years post treatment. They're coming out more and more now, where kids that went through cancer treatment when they were younger, the chemo really does a number on them later on in life. They have side effects later. So that's what happened to me. And dealing with Crohn's disease, dealing with lymphedema, dealing with a bunch of different other issues that I had from transplant. It makes it very hard to be able to consistently work. So ever since I got divorced, and I didn't have I wasn't living with my wife anymore, and we didn't have we had to sell our home and everything. So living without that is, when you're well, I'm not single anymore. I do have I am going to be I am engaged to get married soon. But that yes, thank you. But that's not going to happen for about another year. But in the meantime, trying to take care of yourself can be really challenging, because you don't have most people are able to dictate what they can do on a normal day. For me and for people like me, it's really hard. There are some days I have no idea what the day's going to bring. My stomach can act up where I'll there are some days where I'll go to the bathroom 20, 30 times before noon.
So Mark, for those who don't know your story, can you just bring us back to what you have, what treatment you had, and what was the result of that treatment and side effects?
Well, in December of 1990, I was diagnosed with rare cancer called rhabdomyosarcoma, and what it is, it's a skeletal muscle cancer, and it's so rare, and it only usually acts up or shows up in children between the ages of 2 and 5, and I was 16 when I got it. So they didn't know what it was. Especially here on Long Island, it just that it seemed like they had no idea what they were dealing with. So they originally diagnosed me as having an abscess, and then they operated on it, and then they almost killed me right there on the operating table because they cut into a tumor. And then they took a biopsy, and then they came back that it was terminal cancer, and they said they told my parents you only had 6 months to live. So then they sent me to Sloan Kettering in the city, and they re-diagnosed me. They took another biopsy, and they said, okay, well, you don't have terminal cancer. What you have is a very rare aggressive cancer called rhabdomyosarcoma. There's only 66 of it in a year back then. In the U.S. in a year, and most of those cases between 2 and 5. So the thing about rhabdomyosarcoma is it was very aggressive, and even if they successfully treated it, it would come back. So what they wanted to do with me was put me on. I was on an experimental protocol that was very aggressive, that dealt with 5 megadoses of radiation, 5 megadoses of chemotherapy, two megadoses of radiation, and a bone marrow transplant. And the transplant was designed to destroy all my bone marrow, so I wouldn't be able to make it again. And it back my old bone marrow, which was treated, and then it was kind of like starting all over. So if I were to not get the transplant, I would have died because my bone marrow was incapable of making any more blood cells.
How old were you?
And so that I was 17. That took place in July 1991.
17.
And yeah.
What must have been going through your mind at 17 with this?
Well, I mean, I was a big time athlete here on Long Island, and I wanted to play basketball and baseball. I was scheduled to play college both, and that was my whole life. I mean, everything that I built on my life to that point was based on being an athlete, on playing in college, and then seeing where I could go from there. I don't know if I was good enough to make it to the pros, but that was my essentially my talents lied in sports, and I was very good athletically, and that was my whole identity. Up until then, and that's what I waited. I had waited to get to this point to where you're 16, going on 17, and you're just blossoming into that athlete that you were supposed to become. I got a lot stronger. I started to be able to dunk a basketball. There were so many different things ways that I improved that summer. I remember the summer of 1990, I really improved in baseball and basketball, and I was ready for my junior year. And we were going to have a great basketball team, great baseball team, and then halfway through basketball season, I couldn't sit down anymore. I needed to lay down on the sideline because I had a tumor the size of a grapefruit on my back.
Oh, wow. That's a lot to go through at 16, 17, huh? Yeah. So tell me, once the treatment was over, once you went through all this treatment, what was the consequence? Are you cancer-free?
Say again? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me. I said, once you actually went through your treatment, what was the consequence? What was the result? Today, are you cancer-free?
Yeah. I mean, the treatment definitely it worked. What they told me was they were going to bring me to the brink of death, and then they were going to bring me back, and that's what they did. And because of the protocol that they used with the massive radiation and chemo, it didn't come back. And I've been cancer free since March, April of 1991, because they had stopped seeing all signs of cancer in my body about 3 or 4 months into treatment. Mm-hmm. And I actually at that point thought about ending it because it was nowhere in my body. And I certainly didn't want to go through any more chemo or radiation. That was enough to, just 2 or 3. Actually, my second dose of chemo, it was a 5-day chemo, and I got it when I had the flu. I caught the flu earlier that week. And now, if you can imagine having the flu and chemo, it almost killed me. I had very fevers. I couldn't walk, and that really set the tone for, holy, this could really kill me. You hear cancer and you know how dangerous it is, but until you really go through the sickness, and until you're vomiting and you can't walk and you can't do all the things that you used to do as a teenager, then it becomes real, and then you have about how it's going to affect you, how are you going to live, what your attitude is going to be like. And for me, it was I've always been a godly person. I've always had based a lot of my faith in Jesus, and that if I didn't have that to ground me, I probably would have been a lot worse. I mean, I don't know if I could have seen any hope. I mean, you saw it with the families we would see in the hospital. A lot of these parents were just grasping for anything to make sense of why their child is sick. I mean, children.
Very hard.
I mean, children that were born that knew no other life other than suffering. IV pole, IVs being put into them, blood tests, chemotherapy. That this is all that these kids have known. Some of them since birth, and it's horribly sad. And I mean, if you really want a slap of reality in the face, you can take a walk on a cancer ward, whether it's at Sloan Kettering or at any of the other cancer hospitals, and to see what the kids go through, see what the families go through, just to see the hope that cancer really robs you of hope, and that's one of the that's one of the foundations we have here as human beings, is to have that hope and to cling to that hope of getting better, of having being able to do more.
How are you living today? What side effects do you have? How is your health today?
Well, that like I was saying at the very beginning, the side effects of the radiation and chemo really caught up to me about 10 years down the line. Now, I started having stomach problems maybe about 5 years after, to where my intestines really just started to be. I wasn't able to digest food, able to eat normal things that I had once eaten. Would bother me. Milk bothered me. Vegetables bothered. Anything raw. So it was basically an onset of IBS at first, and then it developed into Crohn's disease. Same thing with my legs. I had lymph nodes removed at the very beginning of treatment, and my lymphatic system was affected, and then my right leg developed lymphedema. And what lymphedema essentially is your lymph nodes stop working, and your leg swells up. So my right leg was about 3/4 times the size of my left leg.
Right now, is that today?
What's that?
Is that today? Is that now?
Well, what happened is there's been some advancements in treatment of lymphedema, and I had a lymph node transplant about 2 years ago,
Okay.
Where they took lymph nodes out of my arm and put them into my leg, and it's helped. I still need to wear a stocking, so it pushes the lymphatic fluid toward the working lymph nodes. So what you do with lymphedema is wherever the affected area is, you wear a wrap or a garment, and that pushes you use it to push the fluid through to working lymph nodes. For me, I work it up the leg and into my waist, and my chest, and other areas that there are working lymph nodes. It's a very unknown disease. There's a lot of questions, a lot of misdiagnoses out there about lymphedema. It's not easy to treat, and up until a couple of years ago, they really didn't have any type of idea of how to handle how to handle the swelling, because you can't just you can't just take a water pill or it just doesn't leave your body. It's like sticking a needle sponge essentially, and it's hard to get rid of that fluid.
Do you have to wear that every day, the stocking?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, well, it was worse before. I mean, when I first got diagnosed, there's a picture if you go into my website, CK Magic Sports, and you click on a couple links about me. You'll see a picture of me when I was when it first was diagnosed. And at first, it was so hard to wrap my leg, and essentially that's what you had to do. You had to wrap it in what looked like an ace bandage and start from the bottom and go all the way up to the top. And it can be real painful because you're dealing with nerves on your ankle and your feet that are like very sensitive. And that got really painful for me at the beginning, and I didn't know how to handle it, so I just wouldn't wrap my leg. I'd rather deal with a swollen leg than it being in constant throbbing pain. But you can't have a leg that's that swollen, and it was really ridiculous. The size it was, I couldn't fit into any type of shoe or boot or anything. And then I finally started. When you have lymphedema, you learn how to handle what your form of lymphedema is. Some people have it in the arm, some people have it in the midsection, some people have it in the leg. So when you have it in the leg, you have to either get a garment, which is a pull-up, almost like a sock that you wear every day, and then you have to also learn how to wrap your leg by using these things that look like ace bandages to push the fluid toward your working lymph nodes. But it can take a while for the fluid to get down. It can take up to a week, 2 weeks really? of consistent, just to get it down to where it looks somewhat normal.
Mark.
It would never be normal, but it always be some sort of swelling there.
So it's never going to go back to normal.
No, it's about as close as it can get. I mean, if I were to show you my leg now, I have my stocking on here, and this looks really good. This is by most people would look at my leg and say, well, it looks normal. Yeah. But if I took off my stocking, you'd see a little bit of swelling, and then if I didn't put it back on, if I kept the stocking off for a day or 2 days, then it would start to swell again. Okay. So you do have to now. Since the transplant, it's been I've been able to go like longer periods without having the wrap on. Like there's sometimes where after you get out of the shower and you just want your leg to breathe, and you don't want to constantly be in a sock or in a stocking. I'm able to go a little bit longer now without seeing the severe swelling right away.
Okay.
And so that definitely did work. It definitely did help. Good. I mean, it was a real in-depth surgery. It took almost 7 hours, but it really did pay off.
Mark, just to summarize, the lymphedema is a result of the radiation and the chemotherapy you had?
The lymphedema is a result of removing the lymph nodes. So
why did they
when I was diagnosed? When I was diagnosed, they went in my groin and they removed one of the lymph nodes because it looked inflamed, and it looked cancerous. So they removed it. But essentially, I didn't have cancer in there, but they just did a kind of precaution.
Okay. So they removed something which was cancerous, in fact, but they thought it was. And
but you it's all over your body. It's there. An area that you have a lot of them is in your groin. And what happened right before I was diagnosed, I had almost like a pulled groin. And then when they went in and did surgery on me, they noticed it, or it showed up in a MRI, and they said, I think just to be safe, we might want to take this out. So that's why I had swelling there.
Okay. All right. And then you also mentioned that you have chronic stomach problems as well.
Say again?
You also mentioned that you have chronic stomach problems.
Yeah. Yeah, Crohn's disease. Yeah,
Crohn's disease.
that is most crippling.
And that is
Because that. Good.
Yeah, but what is it? What is it from the chemotherapy, the radiotherapy? Is it a treatment? What is it? What's the result of this?
It's radiation.
Radiation.
It's the radiation. Radiation did most of the damage.
Okay.
And the chemo did other sorts types of damage where chemotherapy can prevent or inhibit your cells from being as healthy as they once were, or as reacting to things as they once did. The same thing with your, with the nerves in your leg, and chemotherapy, essentially you're putting poison into your body. So that did a lot of damage on itself, and the radiation on top of that really destroyed a lot of my stomach lining. Crohn's disease is never consistent. From one day to the next, I don't know. Sometimes I could eat something and be fine one day, and then the next day it'll cause a reaction. Really? So it's a very frustrating disease, and it leaves you. Some days you're a slave. You can't leave your home. You can't you can't go anywhere because you're afraid you won't be able to get to the bathroom. So it really it's very it plays with your mind, because it's when you're an adult and you deal with that type of stuff, it can be embarrassing, it can be humiliating, and so
for sure.
You don't have enough.
Is there a cure for that? Is it for life? What does the doctor say?
No, there is no cure for Crohn's disease. It can be treated a number of different ways. Most people that have Crohn's disease, what they do is they'll have surgery and remove because what it is your intestines essentially become, I don't want to say poisoned, but they basically it's like part of your intestine stops working the way it should, and it becomes affected in such a way that it needs to be removed. Okay. And so what they do is they would take the diseased intestine and then remove it, and then that would help because you didn't have as much of the intestines that were ruined. They would take them out. In my case, they couldn't remove any of my intestines because the radiation made my intestines so thin that essentially all of my intestines. So it would be like.
Oh, there you go. You're back.
Yeah. It would be like attaching diseased intestine to diseased intestine. So it would not work for me. It would be actually really dangerous for me to do that. So
where are you right now in your mindset?
Well, right now in my mindset, I'd be a lot more comfortable if I had a consistent way to earn a living. When you're on disability, you're basically subject to whatever the government can give you. And if you don't live with somebody, or especially living on Long Island, it's expensive, and you can only do so much on $2,000 a month. So what I started to do when I was married is also I had a covering them, but I still felt like I needed more. I needed there were people like me, and there were others that I had met that were damaged by treatment. And then what do? I mean, they some people you have got got a doctorate, went to med school. They got their master's degree, and now they can't work at all. So their whole life is spent something, and now they can't do it. And then so what do you care of the things you need to? And yet you're a survivor. You're a cancer survivor. So on one hand, you feel this great you achievement, and then on another hand, you're like, okay, well, what do I do now? I learn a whole new life, and essentially that's what I've been trying to share with others about what because everyone still has something they can give, and we all have talents that are unique to us. Mine is I know sports inside and out. I'm a good speaker, and I'm able to I'm able to relate well to people, and a lot of what I've been through, I've been able to use my experience to share with others some of the things that have happened to me, and be able to give them things that they can look out for, ways that they can better take care of their body, because that's a huge thing. Like dealing with diseases like Crohn's disease and lipid, you have to eat well. You have to take care of your body. You have to make sure you get rest. You have to do a lot of different things to stay healthy.
Tell me, Mark, before we finish this interview, what can we do for you? How can we help you to get through this, to have a better situation, to help your disability? You're now on a disabled benefit. What can we do for you?
Well, I started writing a book about 10 years ago, and it was on basically what I went through during cancer treatment. And that's a way I want to be able to even further use my talents and share with others what I went through, because what I went through was really and how I survived was a miracle. And I know it can help a lot of people out there that are going through rough times, that are thinking there's not any hope, there's not any reason to they just can't see the end of the tunnel. For me, that was definitely the way I sometimes during transplant. At 16, 17 years old, hearing my friends going to the beach, doing all these things that teenagers do, and me sitting in a hospital room in Manhattan, so far away, if I'll ever get my life back. And what I'm planning on doing now is using that. Book will come out supposed to come out in June, July. It's called My Scars. And it's written by Dorrance. Dorrance is the one who's going to publish it. And you can go to my website is CK Magic Sports. And because I've been dealing with, in the winter it can be hard, and definitely since Thanksgiving I've had a lot of stomach problems that have prevented me from using my website. I started a website about 2.5 years ago. I've done podcasting, I've written articles, all these different things about sports when I'm able to, because that's really what I do really well. That's talent that I've been blessed with, and that's just for me. It's my way of being able to give back the little that I can do to share with others my talents. And I think for everyone that suffers from this, there is something that you can give where other people hopefully can learn from it and take value from it, whether it's your story, whether it's your being passionate about sports, whether it's being a writer, whether it's playing music. There's always something you can do to use your talents. And for me, if you go to my website, CK Magic Sports, and you click on the name of my book, which is My Scars Tell a Story, and there's also /Knockout Cancer, which is the other name I've given to it. You'll be able to donate to help me pay off my book, because as a first-time author,
help you
a lot of these
book, did you say?
Costs come out of your own pocket.
I didn't understand. You said it will help you pay off your
pay off the cost of publishing.
Oh, okay, publishing. Okay, so everybody go to CK Magic Sports and click on My Scars Tell a Story. That's the name of the book, and maybe help Mark there through a donation of some sort. so he can get this book published, which I'm sure is going to be very, very interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think why it was so good to write the book too is it definitely did a lot of healing for me. And there's different there where I write to the 44-year-old writes to the 16-year-old and is telling him the things that he's missed about his body, the life that he gave up, and it's also being able to really understand what you go through from the time you are diagnosed until dealing with the emotional part of being told you have cancer, and the physical part of dealing with the chemotherapy and the radiation. There's so many different ways that it affects you. How it affected my family, how it affected my mom. There's a lot of different aspects to the story that I think anybody who, even if they haven't gone through cancer or if they don't know anybody that has gone through it, I think it'll be able to give them a good perspective on life, on the ways you need to take advantage of today. You don't know, tomorrow's not guaranteed, and you never know what you're gonna be faced with. So take advantage of the opportunities you have today, and especially if you have talents that are unique, that God has blessed you with. Don't take them for granted. That's one thing I regret is that I'll never get that athletic ability back again. I always thought I would have it, and then when it went away, I back. So definitely the things that God gave you, recognize it and use.
What is the best social media platform where people can find you?
I haven't been as active on Facebook. You can find me in a couple areas. You can find me on Twitter at CK Magic Sports. You can find me on Facebook at CK Magic Sports. Same thing with my website, ckmagicsports.com. It's a little outdated because I haven't written for a couple months. Okay. I stopped right in the middle of college football season because I just couldn't write for a couple months because I was dealing with a lot of stomach issues. I write sports articles for a website called Elite Sports New York when I can. And I am a born and raised New Yorker. So I have I follow a lot of the New York teams, but also I have, like, with the Super Bowl coming up, I am a big football fan. So I know a lot about NFL history. I know a lot about sports history. Those are essentially the things I like to write about.
Lovely. Mark, it was a pleasure interviewing you today. I'm glad we made it happen.
Thank you again for your patience with doing this and for keeping after me and making sure this happened. It's been a crazy last couple of weeks, but I appreciate your the way you didn't give up. You kept on me, and it just knowing that there are people out there like you that really understand what it's like to be a and how cancer can affect you. And another place that they can find me too is if you go on Facebook under my name, Mark Kelly. I have a called Cancer Survivors Permanently Affected by Treatment, and that is for me that deal with the everyday side effects of cancer treatment, and they'll have it for the rest of their lives.
Great, that should be interesting as well. Thank you so much, and I'm going to wish you all the very best to finding somewhere to live, your future upcoming year with your fiancé, a new life for you, and wishing you a safe recovery through those side effects. Okay.
Thank you very much, and again, God bless you, and I'll talk to you soon. Let's keep in touch.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye.